Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final. Today, I'm just going to quickly go through the final exam study guide with you, similar to what I did with you for the midterm exam and the study guide. So let me get to Brightspace, share my screen with you so that we can go through the material together. There in Brightspace is the final exam study guide. And what I will do is I will expand it to the full size of the page and go through it with you. It is right now the first item listed, but I am going to open up this item. This is a course evaluation. And if you click on it, you'll go to a web page that has a QR code that you can scan and do the evaluation. University always encourages everyone, requests that everyone do the evaluation for the courses that they're in. It gives good feedback to the colleges and schools as well as the instructors about how they teach and the course itself. Right? All right, let's get into this study guide. It covers the final exam, it is not comprehensive. It doesn't go back to the beginning of the course. It covers what we have done only since the midterm exam, which are the topics of morality, popular culture, the question of God, and chapters 3, which is on inductive and deductive reasoning, as well as 14. Now, there were 3 topics covered in chapter 14. We had advertising, we had the news media, and we had a little bit of popular culture in there as well. Right now, once again, depending upon which edition of the text you have, I let you know where you can find the information. The first ones listed, the first pages listed are from the 5th edition, the oldest. The ones in italic that are listed second, those are from the 6th edition. And the ones in bold, they're from the most recent edition, the 7th edition. But if you notice, the page differences aren't all that great. So you should be able to find most of the information in similar places. Well, let's start off with chapter 3, because that was right after the midterm exam. Inductive and deductive reasoning. Okay, we talked about how when we're putting together our thoughts or ideas, when constructing an argument, we're going to make a decision to do it either inductively or deductive. So inductive reasoning is the reasoning we use when we don't have all the information we need for a direct line between the evidence and the conclusion. So with the inductive reasoning, we're using a degree of probability, and that involves something called the inductive leap. The inductive leap is where we jump over, so to speak, or leap over what evidence may be missing for the direct connection with a degree of probability. We say like, well, I'm 75% sure that this is where this evidence is leading. We can never really be 100% sure because, well, then it wouldn't be inductive reasoning anymore. And this is good reasoning. It's the reasoning of science. It does leave us with a little wedge of doubt where the door is always open for further information that might lead us to a different conclusion. Okay. Deductive reasoning, on the other hand, is when we derive our conclusion directly from the premises, from the evidence. The evidence, item by item, leads us directly to this conclusion, right? Either it does or it doesn't. Either it validly leads to the conclusion or it doesn't, okay? Now, of course, that might, whether or not it's a good argument might depend on whether or not the evidence is true, right? But in setting it up, the reasoning itself, we don't have to worry about the truthfulness of the evidence just yet, okay? We look at the most basic form of deductive reasoning. That's a syllogism. And we identified several different kinds of syllogisms, and we saw some examples. We recognize that a syllogism is at least two pieces of evidence leading to one conclusion, right? Now we looked at the difference between validity and soundness. Here's where we're going to entertain the idea of whether evidence is true. Well, in looking at validity, we're not really checking the truthfulness of the evidence just yet, because checking the truthfulness of the evidence requires a little time. I'm going to bring up on the screen a little image, get down to the notes for inductive and deductive reasoning. Okay. There we go. Put that on the screen here. Make it a little bigger. Okay, so this image helps us understand what we mean by validity and soundness. Okay. Well, first off, a deductive argument is checked for validity. For validity, we're really only looking at structure, meaning that if this is the case, and if this is the case, then that would mean this is the case. So the if is still there. We don't really know what's true. But if we end up in a situation where if this is the case and this is the case, and then we have a conclusion that isn't supported by those two ifs, then it's not even valid, right? It's like looking at a math equation. If the math equation gives us information that could lead to that end result, then we would say it's worth our time to try and work out the equation, right, to find out the answer. But if it's invalid, for example, if the equation is using the quadratic equation, let's say that it's algebra and we're using the quadratic equation. If the quadratic equation is written incorrectly, then it wouldn't really matter whether or not that the quotients, the numbers in there, would lead to that conclusion, because the quadratic equation itself isn't written correctly. So if it's not written correctly, we're not going anywhere with this end result. So in a deductive argument, we look to see if we possibly could get to that conclusion, right? For example, if we were to go to the example that we used in class, we said all people born in Florida are U.S. citizens. Okay, that was our first piece of information, our first piece of evidence. Right? Now, the next one was Maria Gomez was born in Florida. Right? Therefore, in our conclusion, we would say Maria Gomez is a U.S. citizen. Now, this is an example of a valid argument, because based upon what we have here in our evidence, everyone born in Florida is a U.S. citizen. Maria Gomez was born in Florida. It would make sense that this would be the only logical conclusion we could have. So it's valid. But we haven't checked it for truthfulness yet, so we don't know if it's also sound. But suppose it said Maria Gomez wasn't born in Florida, right? Well, wait a minute. Now our conclusion isn't supported by the evidence anymore. We still don't even have to check if it's true. It's just that the way it's put together doesn't support this, right? Well, if she wasn't born in Florida, then what the heck do we care about whether or not everyone born in Florida U.S. citizen? It doesn't apply to her. So we could never come to this conclusion. It wouldn't make any sense whether or not it is true or not, okay? So this would be invalid because the evidence does not support the conclusion, okay? But let's say that we have a valid argument, right? And now we want to test for soundness. So we have to ask ourselves, is this evidence true? Are the premises true? So we go back and we look at that and we see, I see Maria Gomez's birth certificate. Yes, she was born in Florida. It's true. It is the law that if you're born in Florida, you are automatically a U.S. citizen. That's true, right? So then we not only have a valid argument, we have a sound argument. And a sound argument is a very strong argument. Okay? It's like when you're hitting a wall and you say, bang, wow, I don't hear any reverberations. That's a sound wall. It means it's solid. Sound means solid. It can withstand the test of scrutiny in time. So it's a good argument. But let's say, on the other hand, we decided to check our facts and we found out, no, it's not true. I looked at her birth certificate. She wasn't born in Florida. So therefore, even though this argument is nice the way we set it up, the evidence isn't true. So although it's valid, it's not sound because Maria Gomez was not born in Florida. Okay, so therefore, even though we have a valid argument, we don't have a sound argument. A valid argument can be sound, but the premises being false make it unsound. If it's invalid, it's also unsound. No invalid argument is going to be sound. So invalid means it's also unsound. But when it's valid, we check the truth of the premises to see if it's sound or not. Okay? Look over this little image that can help you a lot with understanding soundness. Okay? There's also a lot of information here. This is from the notes that I posted and we went through in the video tutorial on inductive and deductive reasoning. Okay? All right, let's go back now to our study guide and progress along. Okay. Now, when we get to morality, okay, we have two ways generally that we can define morality. We can define it teleologically, okay, or we can define it deontologically. I will give you the definition of each. And in the multiple choice question, you'll have to tell me which one I'm defining. Am I defining teleological in that definition or deontological in that definition? So look at those definitions and be able to identify them by the definition. Immanuel Kant, who we spoke about a couple of times, okay, and his categorical imperative. This one you're just going to have to commit to memory. I'm going to ask you to state the version we discussed in class. Act in such a way so that your actions can be deemed as universal law, okay, for everyone to follow in every situation. That's what I'm asking for on the final exam. For these, utilitarianism, existentialism, moral relativism, okay, situational ethics, meta-ethics, just be able to identify the item by its definition. So I'll give you the definition and I'll give you a choice of items, and you have to pick from the list of choices of what the definition is defining. The advertising ploys, okay? We had this on the quiz for advertising. So pretty much what you saw on the quiz is going to be duplicated to some extent on the exam. They'll be mostly with easy multiple choice or true and false questions. So go through them again, okay, just like we did for the quiz. The 4 tricks of effective advertising. This is found in the notes and be able to match them up. Let's see if I can pull up those notes and show you what I mean. Let's get to the notes on advertising here. Advertising notes. So advertising notes, here they are, okay? This is fourfold structure of effective advertising. So one of them is shame, one of them is optimism, one of them is solution, one of them is rationale. And then they're associated with, you've got a problem or need for shame, your problem can be solved or your need can be satisfied for optimism, get this product for the solution, and you deserve to have this, no matter the cost, be worth it, for rationale. So I'll either put this and you'll have to select this, or I'll put this and you'll have to select this, okay? That will be the way those items are set up. Let's go back to this guide again. Media literacy, we're getting to that, where we become knowledgeable of how the media works and how to incorporate our critical thinking skills into understanding and analyzing what we see and hear and read in the media. Okay. Advocacy journalism. This is when journalism has a little bit of a slant, a little bias, when the media is trying to support one particular point of view or political side. Okay? Participatory, or sometimes called citizen journalism, is where we participate in the news. Like maybe someone is at an accident scene where the rescue workers are there and you're taking a video of it with your phone and you post it on social media, or you send the video to a news outlet. So we are participating in the news, which means not only a great opportunity, but also responsibility on our part to use critical thinking methods and act responsibly with reporting journalism. Okay, the dimensions of interpretation. Okay, this is when we did popular culture and we went over the handout. Popular culture. This is what you also use to do the bonus assignment after the popular culture class, when you watch the video on Rizzo, the young girl who ended up making her own movie because none of the directors were calling her back because of her hair and skin color, right? But she got even with them, made her own, right? So the dimensions of interpretation you will find in the notes on popular culture. Scroll down in the bright space, see the popular culture notes, click on them, and you see the 6 dimensions, the frame of reference, the mythological dimension, the social dimension, ethical and spiritual, justice, and philosophical. So likely I will define them, and you'll be able to tell me which one I'm defining. So be able to identify each of the dimensions by its definition or its explanation. Okay, going back finally to the final exam study guide again. The last items there are the proofs for the existence of God. So I will define or describe the proof, and then you tell me from the list of options which one I'm defining. So the exam has 41 questions in total, right? And 1 bonus question. So actually 42. Okay. 10 are true and false questions. Okay, so I'll have a statement there. You tell me whether it's a true statement or a false statement. There are 30 multiple choice where I will explain something or define something and I give you a list to tell me what I just defined or explained. There is 1 short answer, no essay, but a short answer. And the bonus question is also a short answer question. Okay. All right. If you have any questions or problems about anything you're studying, please send me an email so that we can discuss it long before the exam begins. And when does the exam begin? Okay, so make sure you do the exam before it closes so we can give you a final grade. Okay, I will be calculating final grades and you will be seeing them in your grades in the grade center. Don't pay attention to anything that Brightspace is calculating. That's not going to be helpful to you because Brightspace is really only calculating certain items. And there are 4 items. There is a quiz average. There is the grade for your activity reports. There is the grade for the midterm exam, and there is the grade for the finals. So there are 4 grades. I will add all 4 together and divide by 4, and that will be your grade. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed the class as much as I've enjoyed having you in it. If you have any questions or problems, please contact me, send me an email, reach out to me. I'll be happy to see what I can do to assist you. Very good. Have a good rest of the day and good luck with the final exam.